Hi there. Welcome to Tech Talk Weekly. I'm Bob from Creation Station. This is the weekly show where we give you 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7, and we got a lot of links today, but they're fast stories, trust me. And we're going to get you on your way in about 20 minutes or so. If you've got a story you want to see featured, Creation Station at Broward.org comes right to us. Miss Kayla from Creation Station Business is here with me today. How are you feeling?
You're doing good, as always.
Did I hear a little rumble behind you there from the air?
Well, I'm in the Creation Station. It's
Okay. Yeah. Just somebody working there. Yep. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. No, I like that. This is a great little space. If you haven't seen before, Kayla's been on earlier this year. You know, we're featuring all of our spaces this year as part of the show. And this is the first free co-working space in the state of Florida back when we opened it up in 2017, I think it was.
Yeah.
16 or 17 when we opened it up the first time.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of cool, lots of cool stuff there. Let's hit these stories really quick because they're just amazing, fun stories to get started. Number one is a repeat story from episode number 61. By the way, this is episode 231, so that was quite a ways back. There was a huge volcano, exploded, flattened out. It demolished an island, sent huge amounts of dust and dirt and everything up into the atmosphere. And the reason we talked about it back then was the week after it had exploded, they still hadn't been able to get their internet and things back up. You weren't even here back then, were you, Kayla? So what happened was they had a backup plan of satellite phones and all this stuff in case anything went wrong with a volcano or earthquakes or whatever in their area. But this thing was so massive, it blacked out the sky and blocked all their satellite communications. That's what we covered back in episode number 62. So now there's been new research published, and of course, it's in the show notes for you, a direct link to the scientific study that talks about the idea of what this got. The shock wave from this volcano was so huge, it went more than 50 kilometers up into the sky, and it affected the space station. It affected things out in space. They could actually detect a change in gravity waves out in space. And this whole study goes on about the variations between secondary gravity waves and Lamb waves. And I do not know. I am not a planetary geologist. I don't get these things. But wow.
No, that's massive.
It was just insane. So this goes really into it, and the goal of the study was to see what happened with this volcano, how it changed climate, and how it changed the GPS satellites, because it turns out it did. Now, they have since fixed it, but there was a time back in spring of 2022 that the GPS satellites were off by a little bit, tiny little bit. But it was most noticeable in Australia that it was off because, one, Australia is moving faster than the rest of the planet, and two, the satellites got jolted by this gravity wave. And if you're asking us like, well, wait, Bob, why are you talking about this story? This is science that was paid for from 22 through 25 to solve this. If you stop funding science, you don't get answers. That's all I'm going to say about this one. But there's another cool space story. I got 2 more cool space stories, but this one's kind of interesting. So the Soviet Union back in the 70s, 1972. What were you doing, Kayla, in 1972?
72, I wasn't born yet. There you go. How about that?
Nice catch. I was around. I was paying attention to things in school, and this is when we were landing on Venus. And the Soviets sent up several probes and managed to land on the planet Venus for a brief few minutes, taking amazing scientific stuff as their stuff was melting all around it. One of those landers had a mistake during liftoff, and it went blasting out into the solar system, and it's going to come back here this weekend.
And land where?
Probably not this weekend, but it could be. Really, they're almost guaranteed May 9th to May 10th, sometime in that range. So we're about a week away.
But where? You know where? Does it say where?
Yeah. 52 degrees north to 52 degrees south. Somewhere in that band.
Okay.
So 52 degrees north is London. 52 degrees south is down past Sao Paulo. So it's the entire chunk of the vast majority of the population on the planet might see this thing.
Wow. Interesting.
Now, there's still a lot of ocean for it to land in. Hopefully that's where it lands. Maybe it'll land in the desert. The Sahara's there. We have a good chunk of the Himalayas. You've got a lot of places this thing could land and miss everyone. But I want
that's what we better hope for. Yeah.
This is a big piece. This is going to be a good sized chunk. It's not going to kill it. Well, if it lands on top of you, it might kill you, but it's not going to wipe out a city or anything like that. It's not that kind of thing, but it's one of those issues as we do more and more space stuff. We have to be paying attention to these things because it's going to come hurtling through the atmosphere and it might hit GPS satellites, all the other things that are up there. They're going to be tracking this. And as it gets closer and closer, and they can predict exactly where, if they have to move the space station up or down or north or south, so it doesn't get hit. And I just wanted to point out that this happens so much that in the article, there's a link to another article about how 3 chunks of space stuff land on the Earth every day. That's how big this problem is becoming. So please pay attention. Watch out for this stuff. And don't freak out when you see a shooting star on the 9th or the 10th, because it's just a piece of our gear coming back to us.
Coming back to Earth.
Also, as an aside, I always encourage people, go read the articles. Don't just take my word for it. Don't take our guest's word for it. Go read and learn these things. One of the issues why this is going to hit the Earth, most likely, is because this was designed to go through Venus's atmosphere and land and stay solid in that horrific environment that they have there with chemical, sulfur, all the other things, and intense heat and pressure on the surface of Venus. This thing's probably going to survive impact.
Right. And bring all
if
that
it lands
back.
Yeah. We're going to see.
Night of the Living Dead. Get ready.
Nah. It didn't go anywhere else but us. So it'll be interesting to see. This is one of those interesting ones. Final, cool little story about space and extra little things here. It's better to retire in space than to come home. At least according to one astronaut. 70-year-old person, and he's not the oldest. John Glenn was up there at 77. So there's still a few more years to hit that one. But he was up on a flight recently. It's his 3rd flight to space. He was on the shuttle. He's been up to the space station several times. He's 100-something hours on the space station overall now. Days, not hours. Sorry, days, 100-something days. And he said when he came back, and if you saw pictures of him, they had to carry him out of the capsule because, let me see if I can find that picture. Is it down there? No, it's a different article had a picture of him. They had to basically carry him by hand out of the capsule because he just couldn't move his body. Because even when you're on the space station, you're exercising. But as he points out, you're exercising only your big muscles. So your glutes, your hamstrings, those sorts of things that you're doing. And all the little muscles that keep your knee moving in the right direction, they don't get any exercise in space because they don't need them. So he said, coming back, that's the hardest part. And if you just stay there and do your exercises while you're up there, you can just do that forever. He said the biggest reason to come back is because you miss your friends.
Yeah, but does he have food and enough,
Oh yeah,
nutrients
I mean, we
to
keep
survive?
sending stuff up there. I mean, at least for the next 5 years. In
Yeah.
theory, the space station's coming down in 2030. We'll cover that on the show because we're
Okay.
going to still be doing a show, I hope.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Now
yeah,
that thing hits us when it's coming
no,
back.
no, no. This is a whole different. That's a whole major different change they're going to do for that. So those are our cool, fun stories at the beginning of the show. I've got one more really funny, cool, interesting story sent to us by Lily from the UK. It was a very cute voicemail. She's definitely got a voice. Now, this is all about racing sperm. And I know you're like, Bob, that's an insane idea. It's got a serious bent to it. We are not linking to that company's website, though, for two reasons. And it's not because of it's an adultish type thing. It's because it's more cryptocurrency betting site. And so I'm not linking to them because that was their hook, was we're going to get people to bet on this stuff. And they glossed it over with men's health, but it really was a men's health thing in the end, because all the scientists that helped them out and wrote the stuff and did the things put out their papers about this is what men's health does and this is what you have to do. So two quick things about this, why it qualifies for our show. This picture right here, an electron microscope to track and film this little race that they did by inserting the two samples and tracking the mobility and all the other stuff of their samples, going through the little rate. Let me bring it down. Tiny little maze that they had to go through to do their stuff. But one of the things that I thought was the best part about this, and they skimped over it in this article, but one of the scientists talked about it a lot. They did all the studies and figured out that, the best thing for me to do to win this race is to drink my water, exercise, and get my sleep.
You're talking about the donors, right?
Huh?
The donors.
Exactly. The two people who donated to make this happen.
Okay. And where did crypto betting come in? You said this is a big bet.
They encourage gambling and betting on who's going to win and all this kind of stuff at the event. And we're not, that's a secondary thing as far as I'm concerned, because the interesting thing is, as much as the funny part about this and who, the salacious type of thing, it's just a health story.
Yeah.
If you want to, if this is important to you as a male, someone who has this as part of your body, then this is what you have to do. Get your sleep, drink your water, exercise properly. It's no drugs. There's nothing out there that's going to help you do any of this. It's just do the healthy things that we've been talking about on this show all along.
Yeah, and I see they even gave up alcohol drinking.
Right. They did mention like giving up alcohol for a couple of weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
And these are college age students, so
that was probably a harder thing for the college age students.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yep. So those were our cool, fun stories. Thank you we always like the listener submissions. Some people really get us. But there was a really big thing that happened this past weekend. The Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal lost power, period. The entire part of that part of the European continent went dead. No power at all across the entire place. Exactly why it happened is still up for speculation, and they're doing their investigations. They'll have an answer in another couple of weeks probably, and maybe we'll cover it if it's an interesting thing. The current thought process is that a disruption happened, and because of the disruption, it sent off all sorts of other issues, and some of the centrifuges and things like that happen as part of your electrical generation get out of sync, and that shuts down another one, and now that sends another one out of sync, so that shuts down another one. It was this huge cascading effect across the whole place.
Yeah, domino effect.
If you live in South Florida or Florida overall, the Southeast United States, you know something about this because after the hurricane and your power is off, you can't just turn your house back on. You need to make sure every single thing in your house is turned off and all of your breaker switches are turned off so you don't electrocute anybody and nothing goes wrong when the power comes back. Down here in South Florida, it's FPL. When that comes back, you don't want that all of that electricity flooding through your house all at once, or you'll pop some circuits and maybe blow out a toaster or whatever. Hopefully it's only a toaster. That's what this story is all about. Doing this on a countrywide basis. Everyone in your country has to shut things down so that we can bring the power back up. What do you think about that one, Kayla?
Well, I would hope they put in some kind of massive circuit breaker somewhere so the folks that didn't do it on their local level, you know.
And that is part of this story. I mean, this is a long, complex story, and we've got 2 links for you because one of the things that turns out is they do a lot of newer eco-friendly power generation, solar, wind, and hydro, which actually made it easier to restart because there are some batteries, and there's an article that came out the day before the blackout of this is how you can use batteries to store energy in case you have a problem. Just coincidence. It was pure coincidence. It was a great thing, but effectively getting really big batteries that are built into your power grid that store the energy from wind and solar and hydro, and you can then do this. Now, Portugal was able to come up faster and easier because they have a lot of hydropower, and that meant that they could spin up their generators easier with less because you can't just start a generator. You need power to start your generator. And if you don't have any power in the country, you have a problem. That's why you want batteries to store some power so you then use it to generate things. It's a great idea. It's a really complex thought experiment that turned out to be not an experiment, turned out to be a real thing. So I encourage you to go read. I encourage you to go look at this kind of stuff and see what would happen in your area under some kind of climate emergency or something like that to see what's going on and find out what happens with that. Can you think of anything, Kayla? You've lived through how many hurricanes? What do you tell people?
I only went through one, and that was Wilma. And
Wilma, you had more than one. If you were here for Wilma, you went through like 4 in like a month.
Well, that was the one that was most impactful that made me like evacuate. So
yeah, well, I mean, you had Katrina and Wilma and yeah, we all had that year. Everybody forgets Katrina hit South Florida first, and then it crushed New Orleans.
And then crushed New Orleans. And then Rita, was it Rita that came next? Hurricane Rita?
I believe Rita was that year. I've been through too many of them. I don't know.
Wilma in October. Yeah.
I've done days and days in the EOC that I've just sat there and worked and answered phones.
Yeah.
Speaking of work, and you are in the Creation Station business, and you help entrepreneurs, and you help people do this. How old do you think you should be to go be an entrepreneur and go work?
Well, it depends on your maturity level. You know, you have some 10-year-olds who are more mature than 21-year-olds who are more mature than 50-year-olds. So it just depends. You know, you have to look at the laws of where you are. That's what's going to happen.
That's the issue. In Brazil, there are about the same amount of laws as in the United States, actually, that cover this sort of thing. It turns out in the United States, there's some laws going through the courts right now about youth using social media, but not about performing on it or doing things. If your parents own the account, they can put you on camera all they want, which is what's happening in Brazil to a degree. And they talk about this one young man here to make it to highlight. He is selling food on the street. He is performing and doing stuff as a young entrepreneur, and he's getting tens of thousands of followers all around the world, TikTok, Instagram, etc., to do things. And he's making, and this is part of the issue. By the way, rest of world, we use this site a lot on the show because they give you a really good perspective of non-Western technology and cultural stuff that's going on out there. So the quote from his parents here: I went to work at 13 on the farms, so why wouldn't I want my kid to do the same thing but be an influencer instead?
Well, that's where we are today. That's where we are.
Yep, and that is one of those issues, right? So he normally could make anywhere from 2 to 3 rials. Rial's a different country, sorry. When he was just selling the food and just selling and trying to, hustle on the side and sell things to people in cars, etc. Once he got a following, though, the advertising he was making from his accounts, and he had some stuff going on there, was up into the thousands a month.
Yeah.
83% of Brazilians from age 9 to 17 have social media and or WhatsApp accounts and are posting and doing things.
Yeah.
Is that insane?
No. It makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense.
This story goes into deep detail about what this goes on, how this happens, what the labor courts have decided, because in Brazil, they have decided, no, this is not exploitation.
Okay.
Because he's selling something and you're filming him selling something, and so you're not exploiting him.
You're just broadcasting.
But you're making all sorts of money off of him. Yeah,
Lots of money to be made on social media.
So this is what's happening there now, and these are the debates we should be having here in the United States as part of these new laws that they're trying to pass and do these things. Is talk about who can do what, when, how, where are you going to draw your lines for who can do what? Are you going to have child labor laws or not? Are you going to be able to protect people's privacy, their own stuff for their future? Because it's up there, they're using it, and now this kid's face is being used for whatever those social media companies want to use it for.
Right. And it's happening all over, not just there, all over the world. So.
Yep. The entire planet.
Providing economic and entrepreneurial opportunities that might not otherwise have been available. So.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That, like I said, he went from making 2 or 3 to 1,000. That's a thing. I mean, you don't need to make 1,000. You just need to make 100, and you've changed your life. No, there's no easy answers to these folks. This is societal questions and thinking about changes, because we're not living like the Amish. Just not. I can see you got some more activity going on behind you there, Kayla. I'm going to wrap it up for us. Thank you for being here and doing this. By the way, everybody, one of the reasons Kayla is here today is that it is Small Business Month in May. So pay attention to that when you're out there shopping. Shop at a small business. Shop small idea. It's not just a Christmas holiday type of thing. It's an all year thing.
All year round.
In May. Come do that.
Yes.
And if there is some other story you want us to cover, send it out. creationstation@broward.org. And we'll see everybody next week.
Ciao.